Hey everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today, April 19th, 2023, to talk about the Mercury retrograde that's going to take place from April 21st until May 14th, 2023. Before I start, I just want to give you some of the parameters. These videos are based on whole sign Western astrology. So when I talk about a sign, I'm going to be talking about your rising sign. I also think it's important to check your moon sign. The moon represents our emotional body, our ability to take in love and receive love, to nurture ourselves. And when we endeavor something, especially one of our hopes and dreams, it is the moon that is, I believe, the most influential on the success of that, whether we believe in ourselves, and of course, the other planets support that endeavor, but our emotional body is very important. You can also check your sun if you have a stellium of planets in one sign or house. I also think this is a strong focus of the soul, and I would check that sign as well. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about some of the aspects of the Mercury retrograde, and then I'm going to go into each one of the signs and tell you what house this is happening in for you and how this might play out in regards to the environment. So let's jump in. Today is the solar eclipse. It's the second new moon in Aries. Aries rules the self. It rules a sense of independence. It rules passion and courage and bravery. And I believe that this solar eclipse and the Mercury retrograde are working together. And while the eclipse is basically a day event that has a 6-month influence, I believe the seeds that are planted today and much of what we've experienced over the last couple of years is going to set the tone for this review, this opportunity to reevaluate, which is what Mercury offers us. And in doing so, I think this is going to set new intentions and plant new seeds for a more exciting and liberated experience within this human apparatus. So what I'm going to do is let's talk first about the day of the Mercury retrograde. I keep wanting to say eclipse because today is the eclipse. Mercury is going to retrograde at 15 degrees of Taurus. The 15th degree is the Gemini degree, the degree of thought, the degree of speaking, listening, siblings, writing, publishing, sales, communications of all kind. In the sign, Taurus, of our family history, of our possessions and our resources, our ability to make money, our skills, the relationship we have with ourselves in the perceptions we have of ourselves in relation to our family upbringing, because I think this is very powerful, because this retrograde is going to go from 15 degrees Taurus all the way to 5 degrees Taurus before it goes direct again and covers all those points for a third time. The 5th degree is the Leo degree, the degree of courage and bravery, of the heart, of my own self-expression and my leadership. So here we have an Aries solar eclipse, which is Aries is a sign of leadership as well. We have Mercury, this idea of my everyday life, looking at my everyday life. Am I standing in leadership for my everyday life? Am I pursuing and listening to information and to resources and to teachers and speakers who support the higher version of what I want? Or am I getting caught up in the environmental dynamics that are stoking fears and in some ways maybe even paralyzing our ability to move forward? This Mercury actually goes retrograde at 1:35 a.m. Pacific time. And at that time, it's conjunct the moon at 15 degrees Taurus. The moon moves very quickly, so it will only be conjunct Mercury for just, a blink of an eye, essentially. But for me, at the conception of the retrograde, it sets the tone for, am I addressing my emotional needs? Am I taking care of myself intuitively, nurturing my body? Am I truly able to allow myself to receive love and to give love freely and openly? This retrograde is also conjunct Uranus at 17 degrees Taurus. Uranus has been going through Taurus for quite some time, and Mercury has retrogrades all the time. But for me, these retrogrades in this year have a little bit bigger punch, because this is asking me, am I liberating myself? Am I allowing my own unique expression? Am I allowing my raw creativity and brilliance to be shown? Am I somehow overly connected to what has been, and is it anchoring me and tethering me to a dynamic that won't really allow for my expansion? Because I believe that the moon being exactly conjunct Mercury as it goes retrograde is going to trigger this whole 3-week process. Uranus is going to continue to encourage our liberation from that which does not serve us, from any stories that we tend to tell ourselves within a loop. Mercury is also making a sextile to Mars, the ruler of the solar eclipse that's happening today, in the sign of Cancer. And it continues to have this sextile sort of, it gets tighter and looser as we go through the retrograde. But it is continually asking me if I'm really digging deep to what makes me feel at home, what makes me feel loved and cared for, what is supporting my emotional body, my happiness. That's where I'm going. My emotional body represents my happiness. So this is, to me, a very powerful conjunction that's going to be happening when most of us are asleep. So by the time we wake up in the morning, the moon will have moved on quite a bit. And so the awareness for me that this retrograde is focused on my emotional body, focused on my happiness, and are my thoughts supporting my happiness? Am I saturating myself with things that support and encourage my bravery in my endeavors, or are they putting me back into routine thoughts that keep me feeling tethered to a small version of myself? So I really want you to contemplate that as you start to walk this retrograde, because oftentimes we think, oh, just communications are going to go wonky and don't sign any contracts. And these are all true on a mundane level. But the year 2023 is a year of introspection, a year of balance, a year of redefining our goals, our hopes, our dreams, our aspirations, and standing in brave and courageous energy to implement and then to continue to tenaciously and succinctly and in some cases slowly walk the path, so we can acclimate with each step we take further and further into our dreams. On the 2nd of May, so although this is the other thing I want to say, throughout the whole retrograde, Pluto is making a square to the nodes. So Pluto, who has moved into Aquarius, will station right around the Mercury retrograde starting, I would think, because it's a slow-moving planet. So the last 2 weeks of April, as we come up, it'll be stationing before it's going to go retrograde in Aquarius, and then ultimately in June, moving back into Capricorn. So as Pluto is squaring the nodes are what we call karmic points, where astrologers look for information about past life behaviors and beliefs and habits, things that we endeavor unconsciously because they're imprinted upon us. And the North Node is what we're stretching for, what we're new experiences, and in the acclimation and integration of our hopes and dreams, in a way that we can see them in the 3D world. So this is another theme that's going to be underlying the Mercury retrograde, is Pluto excavating the deepest levels of psychological dynamics that could be potentially holding you in a pattern or holding you in stagnation in some way. So I'm kind of, while this initially may feel a little, sometimes when we look back on things and we think we've kind of uncovered all the information that was necessary, and then we find out years later that there's a little bit more information we might not have initially seen or addressed, it can be a little frustrating. Like, I've been there, I've done that. Why do I have to go through this again? And it's just another opportunity to be more powerful as a co-creator in your own life. On the 2nd, Mercury will be conjunct at 11 degrees to the sun. So the sun and Mercury will both be at 11 degrees in Taurus. I think this is going to be a very powerful day for, again, reflection of my thoughts, of how I am perceiving things and where is my focus. Because just the day before is when Pluto went retrograde in Aquarius. Now, Mercury is not necessarily making any aspects directly to Pluto, but that square to the nodes is in play here. On the 5th, we have a lunar eclipse in Scorpio, and I will address that in a separate video. But on the same day as this eclipse, Mercury is retrograde at 9 degrees, and it is making an opposition to that lunar eclipse. And throughout the day, the eclipse starts on the eclipse is technically at the 14th degree of Scorpio. So Mercury is at 9 degrees, but the day starts with the moon at 9 degrees. The 9th degree represents the Sagittarian energy. So this is really starting to bring to me, I'm having thoughts of like, who am I and what am I? Am I doing what's making me happy? Or am I somehow stuck on some routine of, paying my bills every month, or chasing, these markers that have been set up and structured out for me that I haven't actually taken time to reflect upon whether or not they are true to what I want and what will make me happy. So Mercury is making that opposition to the moon. And then so is Mercury retrograde is also making a sextile to Saturn in Pisces. And this sextile to Saturn is also a theme throughout the whole retrograde period. Again, it'll get looser and tighter as we go through this 3-week period, but Saturn rules our history. Saturn rules the authorities and the things that govern us. It rules, in Pisces now, it could really have me rethinking and wanting to address any fears I have about expressing my own creative endeavors, about how I handle the challenges that the Pluto squaring the nodes is offering me. Am I willing to be brave and allow whatever illusions or whatever self-deceptions have sometimes we keep thinking someone's going to change or something's going to change, and we ourselves are not actually putting any focused thought into how that change would feel, but rather we're focused more on the challenge, and inadvertently we don't see that because it feels like something we need to address, a problem we need to address. I think Saturn sextiling Mercury is going to give me an opportunity to really rewrite how I do this, to build new thought patterns and structures that are based on something that comes from a place of a real connection to the divine, where I'm seeking out the wisdom of a disruption or a disruption of thought, or where I'm feeling frustrated and being willing to dig deeper into the dynamics of that, not to judge or to criticize or to even complain, but rather a piece of information that then builds a stronger foundation for the new chapter that we're all building right now. So I think this is super powerful. Between May 10th and the 14th, which is the last day of the retrograde, Mercury will be in a sextile to Venus in Cancer. So Mercury will make a sextile to Saturn in Pisces, and it'll make a sextile to Venus in Cancer. I really believe this is where I'm going to start to think about being more intentional about my own self-care and about my own self-worth and what I believe about myself. And I'm going to start to transform my history into a tool that empowers me versus keeping to anchor me in a place of paralyzed fear and not being able to move forward. I believe that this particular Mercury retrograde really has more to do with this conversation that is being offered today with this solar eclipse and the nodal structure right now. We are seeing the nodes at the very end of the Scorpio Taurus axis. So they're at like 4 degrees right now. And to me, that again is a nurturing energy. It's the 4th degree of Cancer. It's building a new foundation for the home of my heart and my mind. And I feel like Mercury in this particular retrograde is really revisiting old stories that there is no conclusion more than there is potentially being presented right now. So now the conversation is really between myself and myself. Am I going to continue to chew on something that I cannot change, that there is no further outcome to be explored? And will I give myself permission to move into a new frequency, a new vibration, a new intention that really focuses more on what I want to experience and what I long to achieve in my life? I think that's really important. I also want to say this because Mercury rules so many things in our lives. So there is this potential of some, big epiphanies when it comes to your own personal psychology. It could also be that you are the instrument, the device that Spirit uses to help create balance with others. So you could see, things coming up with your siblings, your cousins, your workmates, your teammates, things where there could potentially be revisiting of ideas or contracts or conversations, and 2 people perceived them differently or heard them differently. Your awareness of the Pluto square to the nodes gives you an opportunity to show up with a deeper awareness and a more effectual way of communicating, where rather than getting frustrated with things, you can sort of say, Mercury retrograde, and the Mercury retrograde being conjunct Uranus will bring unexpected things happening. And I want to offer it this way because it could be something as mundane as you just can't get through on your Zoom meeting, or it could be something where you literally have an upset with someone. Uranus is really multifaceted in the sense that usually whatever disruption that it fosters, it's because there's been an imbalance, it's been ignored. So I want to offer that. Through Mercury retrogrades, it's well known that we don't want to initiate something. We don't want to, initiate a brand new job. But if you've been interviewing for this job for the last few weeks or months, then I wouldn't really personally consider this new. I would consider it moving forward. And I would be very careful about what I'm signing. Be sure I read everything that I'm signing. So that's important. So now let's go to the signs and look and see what houses these are going to be in for you. So let's start with our Aries. Aries, this is going to be in your 2nd house. Taurus naturally rules the 2nd house. And again, this is where we see Aries really evaluating his skills, or her skills for that matter, and her willingness to follow through. The thing about Taurus is it has a tenacity. It's stubborn. And on the opposite end, sometimes Aries can get bored. If things don't come to fruition or they don't see any progress, they could get bored and want to turn another direction. I believe this Mercury retrograde is going to give you an opportunity to really look at how you are implementing your skills. Are you willing to move beyond what you can see with your eyes and allow for a ever so slightly longer journey to your destination? Meaning this, I think that Mercury making a sextile to Saturn is requiring long-term thought to sort of be in the moment of the endeavor versus frustration of the endeavor not showing its value or its payoff rapidly. The 2nd house by nature rules our values, what we value in life, both with our character and our possessions. It rules our money and our resources. But more so, I want to offer this too, because it rules our family history. And with this Mercury retrograde, some of my Aries may be revisiting things within their family dynamic where the labels they were given as children come back up for some reason. And I believe that your ruling planet, Aries, being Mars, learned a lot about how you think and speak and how you listen to others while it spent 7 months in Mercury's ruling sign of Gemini. So this could be an opportunity for you to implement the things that you have learned. Again, your ruling planet is in Cancer right now, and it too is making a favorable aspect to Mercury during this retrograde. Cancer ruling home and hearth. All right, Taurus. This is going to be in your first house. And I really think that with the Uranus and the inception of this retrograde literally being with the moon, both at 15 degrees, I think very much you're going to start to reflect on your family, on your history, on the permissions you've given yourself to be who you are and how you perceive the world. I think also that there may be a moment where you have, an epiphany of where you start to go, well, I may have been right about a situation, but is this making me happy? And I think that's really what Uranus has been doing in your first house, is liberating you from things where you may be right. And historically, you may have had, all your ducks in a row, but you weren't necessarily happy. So here, I believe that the combination of this retrograde being in your first house between the 15th and the 5th degree is really revisiting these degrees of how am I taking care of myself? How am I allowing myself to implement everything that I've experienced, and instead of having it become a memory that makes me feel melancholy, this is a memory that makes me feel empowered now, because I know that if I feel that energy again, I know that I can now take action with more resources and feeling stronger about who and what I am as I move forward in the world. Gemini, your ruling planet, will be in the 12th house for you. Taurus is the 12th house. Again, Taurus will always rule family history. And here it's going to rule family history from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. The 12th house is a house where we don't necessarily see ourselves clearly. The 12th house makes us feel sometimes as if others don't see us clearly. It's a house where we are trying to find a bridge between the human experience and the divine. And there's a push-pull in that house between wanting to reconnect with the collective and wanting to be here and represent whatever life mission we've chosen. So having Mercury retrograde in your 12th house makes me feel as if you're going to be revisiting ancestral dynamics. Things where, you may find, because I don't really want to go to the idea of escapism with Taurus as the 12th house. I almost feel as if the escapism is implemented through work or some way of building something, rather than just going into the idea of masking, like through drugs and alcohol. So Gemini, if you have been inadvertently using your tasks, your everyday activities, your laundry, your chores, to sort of avoid really addressing some things that, I want to put it this way. I have felt very strongly that Saturn being in your 10th house is something's going on in your public status. Something's going on to free you up, to open you up, either within your career or potentially within partnership. And if that 12th house activity in Mercury right now is having you review how you're spending your time, and you're spending it alone, 12th house, and you're doing all your chores, Taurus, and you're always tending to your garden, there could be an opportunity here to start to rethink the idea of being more social and really not looking at the obligations of what social means for other people, what it means for you. because this is really a new foundation that we're breaking ground for. And all of these planetary dynamics that have felt so jarring are literally the jackhammers, breaking that cement foundation that wasn't really serving us, was cracked, and it wasn't viable for moving the story forward. All right, Cancer. This retrograde is in your 11th house of friends, your 11th house of hopes and dreams, of networks, of really innovative thought, invention, raw genius. And I feel as if for my Cancers, the ruling planet for the 11th house by nature is Uranus. So we have Uranus in your 11th house, even though it's Taurus. This is, to me, really this rebellion, this feeling of kind of being in Cancer's face, like, take care of you, because when you take care of you, you take care of the masses, you take care of the collective consciousness, and people seeing you be a loving, nurturing soul, and yet still have the wherewithal and the almost razor focus to know that your dreams are important and viable, feels very much like it serves the masses here. And I want to offer it this way, because the Mercury retrograde could now have you being even more intentional about that endeavor. And what you're doing is you're reviewing the people with which you've grouped up with, the people that you are working with. Are they still aligned in a way that you feel feels as if you're working together, or do you feel like you're working at odds? I think there's going to be a bit of this review. And I think at some point you may inadvertently say to yourself, if you're working with family, that you're going to restructure that dynamic, or there'll be some sort of recalibration of duties, maybe make things a little bit more fair or more just. But in any case, I think for my Cancers, there is a real, the thing about with both Pisces and Cancer, I always have a little bit of trepidation, because you're such nurturers, you're such empaths, you're such compassionate energies that you get lost in the mix. And sometimes when I'm reading for Cancer, I see a big wave come, and the crab is not really able to do anything but surrender to that tide. And I feel as if here, the surrender may come from a willingness to let go, or to allow those which have been disruptive in your teams or in your teammates to sort of let them swim away, let the ocean take them where they go. Because again, I want to kind of reiterate that this Mercury retrograde at 1:35 a.m. Pacific time on the 21st of April is conjunct the moon. The moon is your ruling planet. So this is very much a retrograde to me that talks about reviewing how I feel loved, how I give love, what I think about in the way of nurturing my family, my home, my family of origin, the roots that I come from, the things that make me feel comforted. So I think this is important. All right, for my Leos, Taurus is your 10th house. So this is going to be a retrograde where you could very much find yourself revisiting all sorts of public status type relationships. So when I say status, I mean this in a way that it could be relationships you have with career-minded people, leaders that you have interacted with. And it could even bring back old relationships that and when I say that, I almost feel like I could cross the boards a little bit about that, because we also have Venus retrograding in Leo for 42 days this summer. So she'll be in Leo for about 4 months. So there could be, this retrograde could be teeing up something that's going to happen this summer with your revisiting of relationships. It could even bring back relationships of people that you worked with that could offer job opportunities or opportunities for you to advance that you were not expecting, unexpected, and maybe even a little risky. Okay, so let me give you a little example. For my Leos, there may be the opportunity where somebody comes in and says, hey, I worked with you back in 2018. You're fabulous. I've got this new company, but it's a startup. Or we've got this position, but it's commission only. And you're going to have to double down on your trusting yourself, your belief in yourself, your ability to say, you know what, if I want to endeavor this, I believe I can do that. Because that's where I think the real rubber meets the road here for Leo. I feel as if, here again, today is a solar eclipse in Aries, a fire sign. And to me, this is about initiative. And here on the heels of a Mercury, or I should say, it's not really on the heels, the Mercury retrograde is on the heels of this solar eclipse. So there's some kind of conversation that feels as if it's happening for me, as if I'm more ready, willing, and able not only to plant the seeds for what I want to endeavor from how I know it makes me happy, but also to continue to review how I'm talking about that endeavor, how I'm listening, what I'm absorbing through the media, and how I'm interacting in my everyday life. There's certain people, everybody knows somebody who, whenever you tell them something you're excited about, they either one-up you or they diminish your excitement in some way. I feel like this is where Leo could be a little discerning as well, because if this new idea doesn't even have any roots to put into the ground yet, really allowing yourself an opportunity to spend the next 3 weeks researching and reviewing and resting and preparing for moving forward when the retrograde is over. Okay. In Virgo, or for Virgo, this is in your 9th house. Taurus is your 9th house of philosophy and of religion and of the legal cases, higher education, travel. This is Taurus. So here, I really think that this is where Virgo is going to start to get an opportunity to revisit the beliefs you've had in relation to what you owe others, your service, your employment, your participation. If you're the one person that every time you get invited to the party, you bring, not only chips and beverages and ice, but, and an appetizer, you may find yourself wanting to feel a more reciprocal relationship in some way. And I think that might be what's coming up for you, because I think that is going to spawn some new beliefs within you and start to foster beliefs about your self-worth and how you spend your time. So you're not always in a dutiful sort of, I got to get that done, I got to get this done, I'm expected to bring this. This is how joyous service is the best possible service one can give another. And here, with a Mercury being in Taurus in the 9th house, it feels as if I'm looking back on what I have believed historically, what I was imprinted with in the way of beliefs. Because when we're young, we are absolutely imprinted, like branded, like a cow on a ranch. We don't know it because we don't see it on our skin, but we are psychologically. And the 9th house represents the bounty garnished from what we've excavated in the 8th house. So here, I think that this is very powerful for you. And I think on the backside of this retrograde, you're going to start to implement things that have putting yourself as a priority and seeing that priority as actually being of service to other people. For my Libras, Taurus is your 8th house. The 8th house really represents what is shared. When you commingle your body, you are sharing not just your intimate self, but you're sharing your bodily fluids, you're sharing your attitudes, you're sharing your value system about things. Some people are very conservative with others sexually and with their money, and other people are much more open. So here we're going to see a real opportunity for Libra to look and to review what you are sharing, or what is being shared with you, and how this all works for you. Again, this idea that Taurus is going to rule something that comes up historically, something that has been on some level, you've walked this path a few times. And if inadvertently, as a Libra rising, your partner has been the breadwinner, you may have diminished your own value because you put a dollar amount on it. And now you can reevaluate that value from a place that is much broader and transformed. Because humans by nature do not really give value for or do not place emphasis on people because of their character or because they're hard workers. They oftentimes will inadvertently review them by their resources, by their beauty, by their material bounty. And I feel like with Libra, and this being your 8th house, there's an opportunity to transform that. Because one of the challenges I think about being a Libra, I'm a Libra sun, is that the me can get absorbed in the we. And I personally believe that two me's make a very, very powerful and very connected and loving we. So I think that's what's going to come up here. And I think you're going to, I think that there could also be for Libra something that's come up with, and I'm going to offer it this way. There could be somebody that you think of as like a brother or a friend or a coworker, and they may offer you an investment opportunity. I don't know why I want to put it that way. Intuitively, it's coming as if somebody's coming to me and offering me money. I would hold off and I would allow myself time to review the situation. I wouldn't get rushed into something, especially if the person that comes to you has no idea about astrology. They're not going to give a hoot about a Mercury retrograde. But again, there's a solar eclipse having a conversation with this retrograde, and the nodes are having a conversation with Pluto during this time. So there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than just the retrograde. So as an opportunity could potentially present itself in an effort to be cooperative, you may actually give up your power by being rushed into a situation. Pace yourself and allow yourself the privilege of time. If the opportunity is as good as it is purported to be, it will be there when you're ready. For my Scorpios, this Taurus is your 7th house of unity, of partnership, of peace, of harmony, of balance, of cooperation. It's also the 7th house by nature is the house that's descending as the ascendant is rising. So there's an influence of things that are hidden and unseen here. There's an influence of kind of similar to the 12th house, in that it's not conscious. It's not readily available to me at the top of my mind. So I feel as if Scorpio, and you have the lunar eclipse is going to be at 14 degrees Scorpio. You've been on the axis. Taurus and Scorpio have been on the eclipse axis since last year. So I think that this particular Mercury retrograde on the heels of the solar eclipse we're having today is going to give you I feel almost an awareness of an influence that's been sitting under the surface. And as you have an awareness of this, I feel as if you can actually step into a place of more compassion for yourself as you use the retrograde energy to review what's important to you, especially in partnership. When you start to reevaluate what truly brings you harmony, what brings you peace, what makes you feel valued and seen in a relationship. For me, Scorpio is one of, if not the most savory, rich, deep sign. It is so avatar. I see you and I want to be seen. And having Taurus be the descendant, it could be very much where you have been experiencing a series of frustrations where you don't feel truly seen, because even your own way of speaking or the way you've been communicating is representing more of a scorpionic energy than you had originally wanted it to be, meaning there's more stingy side of Scorpio. So here, I think there's a real opportunity for you to take your power back and to feel a sense of control as you are more aware of how you're communicating and the outcome you want, so that your communication supports that, and it supports uniting with others or inviting others in to come in and join you, rather than one being dominant and one being submissive. All right, for my Sagittariuses, Taurus is your 6th house. And this is the house of service, of health, of our pets, of when I say service, it's how we contribute to those around us. naturally ruled by Mercury and Virgo. It's a house of process and analysis. I believe here, Sagittarius, during this retrograde, and with the idea that the nodes are squaring Pluto, there may be something that comes up with your siblings or your cousins or old work situations that come up for review. The sixth house naturally squares the third house. And so this feels as much, it feels very much as if it may have something to do with previous relationships and the expectations that those people may have had. And now you have an opportunity to really review whether or not you want to continue to nurture their version of you or who you want to be to yourself. I also feel as if within that review process, you're going to start to think about how certain situations may erode your mental health or make you feel stressed out. And as a result of that, you may decide you want to sort of take a little bit of a break from those situations, or to actually potentially even use some of your skills in a meditative way. Taurus rules craftsmen, and it rules people who work with their hands and build things. So you may end up using art and music, or art and creative expression as a way to help alleviate any stresses that are coming up, any old situations that you feel powerless over. The idea that during the Mercury retrograde, Pluto will start its retrograde in Aquarius, heading back into authoritative and governing, meaning ruling government, Capricorn. So there may be this dynamic of some structures that are coming back up either within your own thought process or that are being brought onto the table for you to review and decide if they're still viable for what you want to experience moving forward. If not, I think you're going to cut the ties that bind and give yourself permission to find your service in a more Sagittarian way, where you start to infuse more of those broad thoughts and those real innovative concepts into the 3D world. All right, Capricorn. Taurus is your fifth house of romance, of children, of fun and frivolity and pleasure. And I'm so excited about this Mercury retrograde, because I feel like Pluto has been giving you so much information about how and what you want to build upon in the future. And I feel like you're baby goats now. I don't see the old goats anymore. I only see the excited baby goats dancing on the farm. And here, having this be in your fifth house, there is a very strong possibility that you could go back to some old creative ideas, put a little bit deeper roots, create templates and dynamics that make them more sustainable. There is a very good possibility that if you are a Capricorn of childbearing years, you're going to revisit the idea of conception or of how you're going about conception. In fact, some of you who may have given up may find yourselves pregnant. I know it sounds a little crazy, but it's just that kind of thing. When the resistance comes off, the baby can come through. There's also a feeling of the potential of old romances being revisited, or people who, or energies that come into your existence that feel familiar. And if for some reason they do feel familiar, and that familiarity feels just a little bit on the side of challenge, give yourself a minute to allow it to reveal itself. Remember, Mercury retrogrades are best served when we evaluate and we review and we research and we rest. So for my Capricorns, rest is probably not the easiest thing for you. So pleasurable experiences. If you like to golf, go golf. If you like to paint, paint. If you like to bowl, go bowling. Enjoy yourself. I think this is going to be super powerful for you. For my Aquariuses, Taurus is your fourth house of home, of your soul, the roots of your soul, the influence that the family of origin has had on you. And I think here, having your fourth house be Taurus and having your ruling planet Uranus being transiting over and again through, because it's gone into retrogrades in your fourth house, you may have experienced some changes in that dynamic. You may have experienced some dissolutions of some things, and now we're reviewing how we're going to rebuild those things, how we're going to create a sense of beauty and something sustainable. Taurus, something that can feed and fuel us, but maybe the parameters are a little bit different. There's the potential. Many people have found through the Pluto influences that their marriages have ended. Uranus can do the same thing, or their partnerships have ended. To me, now this is an opportunity to recalibrate from the new evolved version of the relationship. If two people were married and had children, they may divorce, but they'll always be in relation in some way, especially, as long as their children are alive. So I think this is what I'm talking about, a review of that, a review of how we're interacting. It could very well be where we come to some sort of more innovative arrangements with how we address the family, how we interact with the family, especially if we are, fragmented right now or have been fragmented, how we're going to bring things back together. I want to offer it this way because we're going to see Pluto has moved into the early degrees of Aquarius. So I don't know, for those of you that are Aquarius rising, if you have any planets in that early degree, you could have experienced some disruption. Now, let me clarify that because I almost confused myself. Aquarius, Taurus is your fourth house, but your first house is Aquarius. So as Pluto moved into that first house, it naturally squares your fourth house. And this is why I'm feeling there's the potential there that we're starting to see something moving, something coming up that might be long buried. And now we have an opportunity to rewrite it, to innovate it, to bring invention into the situation, not just break it. Okay, and now for my Pisces, your third house is Taurus. And I really think that this is going to be with Saturn having moved into your first house. And I believe Saturn moving into Pisces is really asking me to create foundation and structure around my creativity, to define where I run away and where I actually embrace myself in relation to others, where I clarify and define the boundaries rather than allowing them to continue to be blurred. Now we look at Taurus being your third house. This is going to also be sort of applied to the idea of your communities, your family history, your siblings. Taurus being your third house could very much double down on the peer group within your family and how you interact with them and their expectations of you, and how in some ways you may have been, giving up your power or being overly compassionate or empathetic in a situation. And a sibling is literally like taking you under because they're so challenging. This is a real opportunity to implement or to start to structure in your own mind how you can listen and not take something on, what you can teach those around you about who you are by being more individualistic. Again, Saturn is really asking you to be realistic about what you're building and be practical. So that would play to the idea if somebody's shown historic behaviors where they don't ever change and we're going around in a circle, when they're on an up, I'm not asking you to look for them to fall back down again, but also to give yourself enough distance. So if for some reason that circle goes back around, you're not caught in the whirlpool of it. I think it's really important also for you to take this 3-week period to examine your creative ideas, the things that use and utilize your skills. With a Pisces first house and a Taurus third house, you could be a crazy songwriter. You could be amazing. You could be a choreographer. And all this is now kind of feels like it's time to give life here in my thoughts, in what I'm listening to, in what I'm speaking, to my dreams coming true, so that as I move forward within the year, because Saturn is going to be inside or in the first house of Pisces till February 2026, including retrogrades. So you're going to get a continued opportunity to experience reward as this you implement this structure and you're tenacious beyond, in some respects, your own emotional comfort, because it's almost like, it's like being your own parent, knowing that, if you have one too many cookies, it's going to make you feel sick. So you just don't have that extra cookie. And that gives you more energy and life to do what you need to do to implement that creativity, that passion, that part of you that is, I kind of, Pisces is so mutable, but when it comes to creativity, yes, we have duos and we have trios and we have bands and people work in partnership. But even within those partnerships, each one holds up a dynamic or represents a dynamic. And I think that's what this Mercury retrograde is asking Pisces to do, is to be accountable and hold healthy boundaries for your own creative inputs, your own dreams, your own spiritual beliefs and practices, regardless of the people around you. And even if for some reason there is some disruption, again, we've got Uranus playing a part in this whole dynamic. This could be something that is really illuminating a piece of information that you didn't have before. Sometimes when a disruption happens, it allows us to see the dynamics of people that we hadn't experienced. And while arguments are never really pleasant, how somebody argues with another is very important, because there are those that name call, which is not constructive. And then there are those that really are looking for solutions so they can differ without actually destroying. All right, so that's it for this Mercury retrograde. I think it's going to be a little bit of a wild toad ride. Again, I think it's mostly focused on my emotional body. The retrograde starts with a conjunction to the moon. And I think this is very powerful because the moon does move that quickly. So at the moment when this review starts, it's all about self-care and about trusting that if I take care of me, not only will the universe take care of me, but so will the people that I love. We'll have a more balanced and even and enjoyable exchange. All right, everybody, that's it for me. Please join me Sunday mornings live, 11 a.m. Pacific time, that's where we look at the week ahead's transits and we do angel readings and we get the advice of spirit on how to move best through those transits. So please please subscribe, please share, and hit that notification bell so you'll know when new content's coming out. Thanks, everybody. Peace out. Whoop, out. Bye.